as true to my word, I won't describe your biography, and I won't describe your book. I'd mangle it. So if you would, please tell esteemed audience about the Enchantment Lake series.
Okay, yeah. Well, Enchantment Lake is a fictional, sort of not so fictional lake in northern Minnesota, where these mysteries take place. And so my character, who's 17, her name is Francie Fry, and she's kind of a Northwoods Nancy Drew. She first comes back to her great aunt's lake cabin when she thinks they're in danger because people along the lakeshore are getting murdered. And so the stories are very regionally based, although you don't have to know anything about Minnesota to enjoy them. But people who do live here recognize the scenes of swimming, boating, berry picking, lost kayaks, eerie noises in the bogs, poisoned hot dishes. Hot dishes are casseroles, and for those of you who don't know, that's what we call them here. And murder. So sort of typical northern Minnesota lake life. Mosquitoes, all that stuff. But there's always a murder.
Sure.
Oh, wait, well, not always. And so each book has a mystery that's solved within the pages of this book. But there's also an overarching mystery in all three of Francie's family. Her mother disappeared when she was very young. She doesn't remember anything about it, but she's been told since she was little that her mother died, but she suspects that's not true. And as we go along in this series, it becomes more and more likely that her mother is still alive. So by the end, in the silver box, Francie is pretty convinced that this box is going to reveal to her where her mother is. Will the silver box reveal where her mother is? You have to read the book to find out. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you.
Wouldn't that be something? Go to all the trouble of writing 2 books and then just spill it on the Middle Grade Ninja podcast?
Yeah. So each one is, I should also mention that each one is a different season at the lake. So the first one's in the summer, and Clue in the Trees is in the fall, and the silver box is in the winter. And originally I thought that I was going to have a 4th book and it was going to take place in the spring. But it actually, northern Minnesota doesn't have a spring. Really, I'm serious. It kind of goes winter, 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 summer. So this one is mostly in the winter, and there's a little coda at the end. So we get the little tiny bit of spring, which is very well suited for our climate at the very end.
And are you content now that you have finished, you've satisfied the story, you're good to walk away to do something else, or is there maybe still a possibility for 4th, 5th, and 6th book?
Oh.
I heard 10 more books is what you're going to write.
Oh, okay. Well, Francie's going to age out. She's graduating. She graduates at the end of this book, the last book, so from high school. So then she gets to be a college girl, and I don't know, that seems a bit of a stretch for my audience, which I think is really more middle grade. Even though she's 17, I think the sweet spot with the readers is like 10, 11. It's like Nancy Drew, which I read about, I think, when I was about 10 or so. It was exciting to read about Nancy Drew driving in her roadster. She had a boyfriend, and, it felt kind of like being a little voyeuristic in the high school world.
Well, I read some Nancy Drew when I was younger. Then I would immediately return to the Hardy Boys, but naturally. Did you always have it in your head that, hey, at some point on a long enough timeline, I'm going to do my Nancy Drew?
I have always loved mysteries. I did like Nancy Drew, and I was also a big fan of Encyclopedia Brown. And those little tiny mysteries that you could solve yourself. I love those. And then I also, when I was a kid, my dad used to let me stay up past my bedtime and watch Perry Mason with him. So those were kind of crime stories, but they were kind of mysteries too. And as a grown-up, I love watching mystery on PBS, and I love reading mysteries too. So I think, as Eudora Welty said, writing comes from a superior devotion to reading, and that's probably why I wanted to try writing mysteries. It's the same reason I wanted to write for young readers, is that I loved reading those books, and I wanted to try it myself, try writing it. And same thing with mysteries. I love mysteries, and I wanted to try writing. I do have very much newfound respect for mystery writers now, though, because, I think they must figure out what's going to happen before they start writing, and I never do. I never do.
Did you pants these 3 books? Surely you must have known some of them.
The only one I knew the ending of, sort of, was the last one. This one, Silver Box. Otherwise, I had no idea. I mean, like, I would have a murder happen, and I had no idea who did it.
When did you figure it out?
I don't know. That's that faith thing. Like, you just have to have faith that it's going to come around. You're going to figure it out. That's that's how I did it. But there was sort of kind of touch and go sometimes. Like, with the clue in the trees, I was really like, I have no idea. But then I read this really interesting news article, which I can't really divulge because I give away too much of the book, and I don't want to spoil it. But that was like, that's it. That's it. That's what's going to happen. And it's based on a real thing. So I kind of like that about it. The mystery is that it's actually based on a kind of, partly anyway, a real event.
And these are relatively realistic mysteries. I mean, obviously, Francie is a former television detective, so there's some not quite fantastical elements, but heightened reality maybe is the word for that.
Right.
But this has to be a bit of a departure, because you don't have history to guide you and to say this absolutely has to happen. So how does that change your process?
Yeah, it is interesting. Writing about a real person has parameters to follow, and when you're writing a real life, and you have rules like I do, you can't go outside those parameters. It has to be close to that for me. And so when you write straight fiction, like, anything could happen. It's like reverse writer's block. It's not like you can't think of anything. It's like you could think of way too many things. That's the hard part of writing, is just straight fiction for me, is just having too many directions to go. So that's the tricky part, is you have to find a way somehow to something to follow. I don't know. I just flail around. Hope for the best.
I wish for myself your level of flailing. I think that would be a good problem to have. But did you write these straight through, or did you take breaks to write other things between?
Yeah, I did. I was writing other things, and that also made it kind of hard, because Enchantment Lake the first book I wrote, I tell people it took me so long to write, and I wrote it such a long time ago that it could qualify as historical fiction.
Your history, anyway.
Yeah, I know I did have to go through and really update things at a point because I had worked on it on and off very casually. It was kind of like so I have a cabin, obviously, on a lake, and sometimes we put a jigsaw puzzle out, and then you just leave it there. And every time you go to the cabin, you work on it. And that's the way I felt about this book. Like, I would just work on it when I was at the cabin. And so mostly in the summer, and kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, because mysteries are like a jigsaw puzzle, just, fitting little pieces together and so on. So then that was really, I was probably working on that at the same time I was working on Heart of a Samurai, I think. Or, right along in there somehow. So a long time ago. But then it didn't get published right away because I wasn't really finished and whatnot. So then the other books started coming, but then I was also writing other historical fiction. It's a little bit of a juggling act, for sure. Getting everything done at the same time. Or, not at the same time, but you have one book you're writing, composing, and another book that you're doing, revisions on, and maybe a third book that you're copy editing. So that's the way it was a year before last, or that last year before these books came out. I don't have that situation all the time.
Have you scratched your mystery itch, or are you thinking is it more like a now that you've started, you can't stop type of situation? You've got to write more mysteries.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a good question. I don't feel like I'm that good at it. I shouldn't say that because obviously I want people to read these stories.
Sure, the silver box available October 6th, everybody.
I know that I know people love them. Just to say that I get a lot of positive feedback from these stories. So I know they're not terrible.
Well, in all fairness, I remind the esteemed audience, you thought The Heart of a Samurai was going to be not so great as well.
I thought that was terrible too. So, okay, you get a sense. But no, I do think that mystery writers are probably have puzzle minds. Like, they're real good at those jigsaw puzzles or crossword puzzles or any kind of puzzles to put together. And I'm not really a puzzle person. So, and also I'm not organized about plotting. And I think good mysteries are mystery writers who, do series and have a mystery coming out every year. They must just really have a system, because it just takes me a very long time in my flailing way to write one. Maybe I'll come up with a system and then I'll just go for it.
5 mysteries a year published.
Yeah. I'll never be that fast. No.